This is another case recently, and this one's quite sad actually. I felt really sorry for the poor landlord. Right, so tenants moved into a property in 2004 and they paid a deposit. Now, for those of you that know, deposit laws have only been in place since 2007. Okay, we didn't have to register deposits prior to 2007. So when they paid a deposit in 2004, there was no need for the landlord to register the deposit, so he hadn't done anything wrong. This property was rented to 4 tenants. Let's call them A, B, C, D. Okay, and throughout the duration of time, this tenancy continued from 2004 to 2021. Throughout the duration of time, these tenants changed. So A, B, C, D became B, C, D, E. And B, C, D, E became C, D, E, F, and so forth. There was 3 changes of sharers throughout the duration of this tenancy. This is very common, as I said earlier, that, you know, one tenant leaves, finds another tenant to replace them. The 2 tenants exchange money. So, oh, well, I paid $250 deposit when I moved in. So the new tenant pays the old tenant $250 deposit, and off they go. Everybody's happy. Landlord's still got his deposit here. Old tenants got their share. New tenants paid the money and got their covered, okay? And throughout the duration of this tenancy, because no money was ever changed hands with the landlord, the deposit was still not registered because he received the deposit in 2004 and never received any money thereafter. Tenant A now decides, or one of the tenants decided they're going to take the landlord to court in 2021 because they feel that he's failed to comply with deposit regulations by not registering the deposit. Because the landlord was aware of the change of tenants. He was aware that this in turn created new tenancies because he was accepting rent from the new tenants, so he knew they were there. And initially when the tenant took the landlord to court, the landlord was overjoyed because he won. And can you see a pattern here, guys? Things are going to court and they're not just staying at the first court hearing. They're being escalated to the Court of Appeal or the High Court or upper tribunals. So the initial hearing found in favour of the landlord. Landlord was awarded some costs and off the tenant goes. Off the tenant goes, okay? So the tenant says, no, I'm not having this. I don't agree with it. So I am going to appeal. Now, upon appeal, the judge determined that on each change of sharer, every time a sharer took place, a change of sharer took place, a new tenancy was created. And therefore, because a new tenancy was created, there was a subsequent change and a new tenancy was created, the deposit should have been registered and the prescribed information should have been served on the tenants because a new tenancy has been created. The judge was quite lenient because for those of you that know, if you fail to comply with deposit regulations, the penalty is 3 times the deposit amount plus the deposit. So it could be up to 4 times. And he was lenient because he didn't believe that the landlord had acted with the intent to not comply. There's argument that it's a slight loophole in the legislation, and quite often that is the case. So the court awarded the tenants, 3 of them, £3,615 in total, which was £1,205 each, which was 1 times the deposit per change. So whilst he was penalised for 3 times the deposit, it was actually only 1 times the deposit per change. So if you are aware that tenants are changing, you have to deal with the deposit. So the recommendations following the case, and this is recommendations from a solicitor that recently gave a legal update in our ALA meetings that we attend. And he said, register the deposit even if it's prior to 2007 to avoid this happening. Don't take the risk. You as the landlord control change of sharers. Do not allow tenants to control it. Because what he's done here is allowed the tenants to just make the changes, and he's just accepted the rent and he thought, well, it doesn't affect me. They can just do with what they want. And when you do a change of sharer, make sure you do it properly and legally. And to do so, you need to do a surrender of agreement, an assignment of agreement, a re-registration of the deposit, and a reserving of the prescribed information. Because if you don't, you may find yourself in a very similar situation to the landlord in question. And please note that the solicitor giving the presentation stated, now there has been case law around this matter, judges will be less lenient if landlords fail to comply, because it's out there now that you should be following these rules. So you must learn from this.